Hello, students, teachers, parents, history nerds. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nutshelled History, where we lay out the facts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today, we are going to continue our American government series by looking at the U.S. presidency and vice presidency. Don't forget that there's a link for a fill-in-the-blank worksheet in the description. I just ask that you like and subscribe. I apologize for any mispronunciations ahead of time. I do my best. Imagine being the President of the United States. You're basically the ultimate multitasker, juggling 9 jobs, 6 of which are kindly assigned by the Constitution itself, and 3 others that just got tossed your way because why not? First, you're the Chief of State, which means you're the face of America, like the country's mascot, but with way more pressure. Smile, wave, and try not to trip over the red carpet. Next, as the chief executive, you're the boss of everyone working in the federal government. That's a whole lot of people who want to know if they can take next Monday off. Oh, and don't forget, you're also the chief diplomat. You're in charge of shaking hands with other world leaders and pretending you enjoy all those diplomatic dinners. As commander-in-chief, you control the military, which sounds cool, but it also means you can't ignore those 3 a.m. crisis calls. But wait! There's more. As chief legislator, you get to tell Congress what to do, or at least suggest it. Whether they listen, well, that's a different story. Now, for the bonus roles, chief economist, where you try to keep the economy from crashing like a bad computer update, and chief of party, where you get to throw political parties, or at least try to keep your party from throwing you out. Finally, as chief citizen, you're supposed to be everyone's role model, so maybe lay off the Twitter rants. To get the job, you need to be a natural-born citizen, at least 35, and have lived in the U.S. for at least 14 years. Also, thanks to the 22nd Amendment, you're only allowed 2 terms. No third time's a charm here. If something happens to you, knock on wood, the vice president steps in, and if the VP can't do it, we start going down the political phone tree until someone answers. This backup plan is called presidential succession, but let's hope we never have to use it. Speaking of the VP, they have 2 main gigs, overseeing the Senate and helping figure out if the president is having a bad enough day to step aside. But lately, they've been getting more responsibilities, so it's not just an eternal waiting game anymore. Meanwhile, the First Lady or First Gentleman gets to play a more ceremonial role, kind of like a royal without the crown jewels. She or he gives advice, promotes causes, and looks stylish while doing it. Now, the president does have some real power, but Congress and the Constitution are there to keep them in check. Some presidents have tried to stretch their powers like elastic waistbands after Thanksgiving, leading to the term imperial presidency. Think emperor without the cool robes. The U.S. president's domestic powers are like a wild mix of being the world's busiest manager, a national babysitter, and that one friend who insists on organizing every group hangout. First up, the president is like the ultimate HR manager of the federal government. They get to hire all the top officials, from cabinet members to diplomats, and if someone's not cutting it, fire them too. Just imagine sending the head of an agency to the unemployment line because they couldn't handle the paperwork. But it doesn't stop there. The president also has something called ordinance power, which sounds fancy, but basically means they can issue executive orders. Kind of like when your boss sends a must-read email at 4:59 p.m. on a Friday. These orders have the effect of law, meaning if the president says jump, the federal government better ask, how high? And while the president can sign executive orders like their VIP passes to getting things done, there's always a watchdog, aka Congress, nearby to ensure those orders don't get too out of hand. And then there's executive privilege, which is essentially the president saying, I don't have to tell you anything. It's like a teenager refusing to share their text messages. Except instead of parents, it's Congress and the courts asking for answers. Fun times. The president also has the power of clemency, which is like being the nation's official get-out-of-jail-free card dealer. They can pardon people, reduce sentences, or even give whole groups of lawbreakers a do-over. It's basically the ultimate doomsday button for your criminal record. And let's not forget the president's influence over Congress. They can propose laws and tell Congress what they think should be a priority, like a national suggestion box that Congress either ignores or accidentally on purpose loses behind the couch. Oh, and if they really don't like a bill, they can veto it with the dramatic flair of a TV judge slamming down a gavel. All in all, the president's domestic powers make them the nation's top decision maker, deal breaker, and occasional party pooper. They're the ultimate one-person show, trying to keep everyone in line while making sure the country doesn't go off the rails. And if it does, well, they've got executive orders for that. The U.S. president's foreign powers basically turn them into America's top diplomat, dealmaker, and occasional global peacekeeper, all while trying not to offend anyone at those awkward international dinners. First up, the president can make treaties with other countries, which is like trying to sign a friendship contract at summer camp. The catch? The Senate has to approve it with a 2/3 vote. So it's kind of like planning a group trip where you have to convince your friends to actually agree on the destination, and no one likes the same place. But if that sounds like too much work, the president can just whip up an executive agreement, which is a handshake deal with another country's leader that skips the whole Senate approval process. It's like saying, "Don't worry, we don't need to write this down, right?" The president also has the power of recognition, which means they get to decide which countries are in the cool kids club. If the president likes your country, congratulations, you exist. If not, well, they might just ignore you, like you're not even at the party. And if things get really tense, the president can declare you persona non grata, which is Latin for, "You're not invited to my birthday party anymore." When it comes to making war, technically that's Congress's job. But the president doesn't always wait for permission. Over 200 times, presidents have sent troops into combat without a formal declaration of war. It's like Congress says, "Don't start anything without asking." And the president responds, "I'm just going to take a quick stroll through this battlefield, no biggie." After the Vietnam War, Congress tried to limit the president's war-making powers with the War Powers Resolution. Now, if the president sends troops in, combat has to end after 60 days unless Congress says, "Okay, fine, keep going." But we all know how well rules work when you're the one with the military button. So in a nutshell, the president's foreign powers let them make deals, recognize countries, and sometimes make war without asking permission first. It's a lot like trying to run a global club while convincing Congress to let you have all the fun, just with way more handshakes and fewer snacks. Okay, now, to recap. Being the US president is like juggling 9 jobs at once, with responsibilities ranging from being the nation's face, chief of state, to the boss of the federal government, chief executive. You handle diplomacy as chief diplomat, command the military as commander-in-chief, and try to influence Congress as chief legislator. On top of that, you manage the economy, chief economist, lead your political party, chief of party, and serve as a role model, chief citizen. You get 2 terms max, thanks to the 22nd Amendment, and if you're unavailable, the vice president takes over. The president's powers include making treaties, issuing executive orders, and controlling the military, though Congress and the courts are always there to keep things in check. Balancing all this means the president plays diplomat, commander, lawmaker, and even party planner, all while ensuring the country stays on track. There you have it, folks. That is the presidency and the vice presidency nutshelled. Thanks for stopping by Nutshelled History. It is an executive order for you to like and subscribe. See y'all next time on Nutshelled History.